when he does the rare thing where he's like, and you're like, oh, that's not even a bad pronunciation. That's you thinking through what is the worst possible pronunciation I can get away with to make the joke still make sense, and like hitting the nail on the head. Welcome to 1999, the podcast. I'm John Brooks.
And I'm Jen Tisdale. So forget about it. Forget about it.
Get out of here.
Forget. Best part of the film.
Oh, so much. Yeah, all of the Hugh Grant. It is today, April the 1st. Happy April Fool's Day, everybody. Not that you'd be able to tell with today's news cycle whether or not something's fake or real, so April Fool's Day no longer matters. But yesterday was, of course, a big milestone day in 1999 history with the release of The Matrix 25 years ago yesterday. We'll have an episode up about the end of March tomorrow, probably, so hang tight.
Yes.
We'll talk about The Matrix. You can also mosey on over to my other podcast, Pod Only Knows. We did a little episode about simulation theory over there, and this whole nonsense as to whether or not this crazy reality we find ourselves in is a simulation. Which, if it is, it's some drunk teenager who's doing all this bullshit. Mm-hmm. So anyway, you can check that out. And happy the day after the Matrix Day. We have a less fun anniversary coming up in a couple weeks. But
oh yes, and that's good. We're gonna have the briefest of references about that in an interview with one of the actors from today's film. References this in an interview that he did about this movie in 1999.
Okay.
We can't escape it. We can't escape it. We thought 420 was going to be so fun, except for the Hitler thing and except for the other thing.
Yeah, it used to be fun, except for the other thing and all the other stuff.
We really tried to rebrand it. Hasn't worked yet.
It has not worked. It has not worked. And then they went and like legalized marijuana everywhere, and like, who cares anymore, you know? Every day is 420 day.
Every day is April Fool's. Every day is 420. Every day is a new day. You know, it's all.
We have finally reached peak civilization, as Morpheus said, or whatever. Anyway, the only major U.S. release of the weekend of August the 20th, 1999, opening in third place, while The Sixth Sense still dominated the box office and going on to make $54 million on a $75 million budget. Where was all that money? Directed by Kids in the Hall alum Kelly. Yes, it was. in John Ventimiglia's incredible artwork. Directed by Kids in the Hall alum Kelly Makin. That's a boy Kelly, not a girl Kelly, in case you're wondering. And written by Robert Kuhn and Adam Scheinmann. Starring Hugh Grant, James Caan, Jeanne Tripplehorn, James Fox, Joe Vitarelli, Jerry Becker, Maddie Corman, The Sopranos, Burt Young, The Sopranos, Tony Darrow, Vincent Pastore from The Sopranos, Frank Pellegrino, Scott Thompson, who's great in this, the late, great Mark Margolis, The Sopranos, John Ventimiglia, Sopranos star Joseph R. Ganascoli, Aida Turturro from The Sopranos, and of course, Tony Sirico, better known as Paulie from television's The Sopranos.
Guys, this is a prequel. In case you were wondering.
There's a lot of people in this movie who were in The Sopranos. It is a backdoor pilot for The Sopranos.
This is
today.
Yes.
This is The Sopranos. Spray yeses.
I'm sorry.
This is the real the Many Saints of New Jersey.
I wish it was this one. I wish that's what
Many
this
Saints
was.
of Newark. Is that what it's called? I haven't even seen it.
There's too many saints in Newark.
Saints.
I don't know.
Too many saints in Newark. That's what they say about Newark. Too many saints here. Today we are discussing the other lesser 1999 Hugh Grant vehicle, Mickey Blue Eyes. So Jen, tell us, what is Mickey Blue Eyes all about?
Well, it centers around Michael, played by the consistently, always British Hugh
Yes.
Grant, he of the floppy hair, though slightly less floppy in this motion picture.
They of course make a floppy hair joke in this movie because
They
they're
gotta.
legally required to.
We have to assume this is in the same universe as Notting Hill. Obviously, this is the Notting Hill cinematic universe. He is in love. He's been dating this woman for 3 months, Jeanne Tripplehorn. He's an art dealer. She's a teacher. He has yet to meet her family. That's totally fine after 3 months. Why are we being weird? Here's why we're being weird. Her family is in the mafia. Not they are the mafia. They're the whole mafia. So basically, this doesn't phase Hugh Grant.
If you know what I mean.
Her familia. Doesn't seem to phase Hugh Grant in the slightest. He is unfazed this entire film. He's very loose, very accepting of everything. And I mean, there's really not much more to say to that other than the specifics. It's just it's a fish out of water-esque movie where he's thrust into this world and again takes it all on the chin. Just very easy breezy. It's fine. Mafia, we're doing this now. He's very yes and. I have to assume his character has done improv at some point. I know you're like, Jen, is this even a synopsis? But that's really it. And then the details we'll talk about. That's really
it. And the plot of the movie is kind of a mess. So it's really hard to sort of articulate exactly what happens here. But we'll get to that. Critics were decidedly so on Mickey Blue Eyes. It holds a 45% on Rotten Tomatoes and a score of 49 on Metacritic. Its strongest review came from Variety's Lael Lowenstein, whose Metacritic, or Lael, either one, Lael, Lowenstein or Lowenstein, whose Metacritic is a 90, and who wrote, quote, "The latest entry in the pop culture arena to riff on the mafia, Mickey Blue Eyes is an engaging, often very funny, fish out of water story that provides Hugh Grant with an excellent vehicle. Well timed to arrive in the wake of his 110 million and counting Notting Hill, and in advance of the bow of the second season of The Sopranos, the pick should hit a commercial bullseye. It didn't, by the way. Bolstering the actor's resurgence and reminding Hollywood that it doesn't take Julia Roberts to make Grant appealing." It also received...
I don't think some people were saying. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, maybe some people were saying something along those lines. It also received positive reviews from the Boston Globe, the New York Post, Time, the Village Voice, the New York Times, Newsweek, the Baltimore Sun, and USA Today, whose Mike Clark wrote, quote, "The beauty here is in the setup, which offers Hugh Grant a role to match his star-making turn in Four Weddings and a Funeral." In fact, most reviews, negative, positive, and in between, praise Grant for carrying the movie with a pitch-perfect performance, playing to all his strengths as both a comic and dramatic actor, and acknowledge the fun of the premise as well as the strength of the jokes, but fault it for failing to carry those things through. Many also point to the fact that upon release, it was already the inferior Hugh Grant movie after Notting Hill, and the inferior mob comedy after Analyze This. And even the San Francisco Chronicle's Mike LaSalle, offering one of the worst reviews of the film, acknowledges much of the above while saying of it, quote, "Mickey Blue Eyes is a 2-hour joke that falls flat. The premise sounds irresistible. Hugh Grant as a bumbling, adorable Englishman who gets involved with the mafia in New York. But the resulting film is a sour misfire. Don't blame Grant, except for making the picture in the first place. Grant's real-life girlfriend, Elizabeth Hurley, not anymore, produced it, and word is that the actor worked closely with screenwriters Adam Scheinmann and Robert Kuhn. He should have run screaming, Grant's charm is considerable, but he can't make sirloin out of Spam." So that's what the critics had to say. Let's see what our guest thinks. And joining us today is Meghan Leigh Paulk. And I'm going to read from her own bio on her website here because it's an interesting one. Meghan Leigh Paulk grew up in Iowa, went to college in Minnesota, waited tables in California and Arizona, and attended law school in Tennessee. She now works in Austin, Texas, where she schemes about murder and writes mystery thrillers. Her experience waitressing at upscale LA strip clubs frequented by celebrities during the 1990s inspired her first thriller, Hollywood Down Low. She had a brush with true crime when the owners of one club were later convicted of the long unsolved murder of their fellow club owner, Horace Big Mac McKenna. Before becoming an attorney, Meghan wrote and worked on nonfiction pieces published in 17 and Los Angeles-based Buzz magazine. Hollywood Down Low placed as a finalist in the mystery category of the 2019 Writers League of Texas Manuscript Contest. Meghan is a Pitch Wars Class of 21 alumni, as well as a member of Sisters in Crime, the Writers League of Texas, and Mystery Writers of America. She loves movies and she loves 1999, and she's never been on a podcast before, so that's exciting.
I'm allowed to tell her what I was just reading about? I was just reading about the McKenna. I was just reading about the strip club.
Oh yeah, the big Horace Big Mac McKenna.
This is wild.
Yeah, wow. That's my first novel is loosely. Yeah. I mean, I say it's loosely inspired. It's not that story, but it's inspired by, you know, working there and having that unsolved case, and then finding out later that people I worked with were actually the perpetrators, which was just kind of very interesting.
I can't believe we've had to watch, like, as John and I were also saying, like 4,000 variations of like Pablo Escobar or like Bundy or Dahmer, but like where's
this Netflix series?
This guy lived on a 40-acre compound with exotic animals, is what I'm reading in the LA Times.
I know, it's fascinating. And actually, when I tweeted about it, there was another writer who subsequently was like, I'm reading about this guy now and I'm going to base a character. I mean, he's a great character. So
6'6", built like a brick. And, you know, the LA Times referred to him as a flamboyant CHP officer turned nude club operator.
Yeah.
Rarely do you see that trajectory.
Well, and he had been, I think, like, if I remember correctly, an FBI informant. You know, he had gone to prison. He had been a cop. I mean, he had done.
What a shit. He sounds like a nice person. And I'm sad that this. I didn't finish reading this.
Yeah, no.
Is it bad? Was he bad?
I actually never worked with him because he was murdered before my time working there. But you know, I had friends who were waitresses who had known him, you know, and had gone and hung out at his, you know, at his
weird 40-acre compound.
And, you know, so
all right.
Yeah, it was a very colorful story.
You must have been doing okay. 40 acres in the LA area, honey. You can't do that. You can't do that today.
Well, yeah, it was very colorful, and you know, and the killers were interesting, you know. So I am a little surprised it would make a great TV series. So,
well, you know, Meghan, do it.
There you go. I gotta
do it. Make it happen.
In some ways, I felt like I was too close to it, but you know, I would love to see someone write it.
It would make a great podcast. People like the podcasts about crimes.
They do.
So
there you go.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about. Let's paint the picture of the 1999 version of Meghan.
Okay.
Where, aside from being in the midst of organized crime rings or whatever it is, what was going on with you in 1999?
Well, here's the thing, and don't kick me off the show. I actually left LA shortly before 1999. I was there from 93 to 97 or 98. But you know, it works well that you're talking about a Hugh Grant movie because my book is set in 1994. Right. That was kind of one of the key time periods in my work. And that was when I saw the first Hugh Grant movie that I saw, Four Weddings and a Funeral.
Yeah.
But what happened is and this is very the stereotype. I was from Iowa and I moved to Hollywood and I took a job at a Southern food restaurant waitressing, and this restaurant was in a really nice part of LA, Century City, which is where Die Hard takes place.
I was going to say Nakatomi Towers, Century City.
And so it was a very nice area. The restaurant went out of business though, but I knew that there was this topless bar downstairs from the restaurant in this really nice area that was kind of catered to celebrities. And at the time, you know, I had done some freelance writing, and I thought, well, this might make a good article if I go apply there and kind of have like sort of a little slice of Hollywood life. And I went and applied for the job, and I got a waitressing job. And then I thought, well, this would be really good money for a while, so I'll just take it and then I'll waitress for a while. And then, you know, it was an interesting job and it was good money and it was easier than my other waitressing job at Tony Roma's. So,
well, yeah.
So I ended up doing that for about 3 years at different establishments because that establishment was eventually closed down in litigation. And then it was after that I then went to the establishment, which was where the murderers of Horace Mac McKenna worked. So,
boy, you would have thought litigation came for that one.
Yeah, you would have thought. It took them a while. And actually, it was after I had left LA that they finally cracked the case. I think it was in 2000. So it was shortly after 1990.
Wow.
So,
wow, that's great.
It is. It is. When was the Hugh Grant fiasco? When did that happen?
1995.
Was it 5? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you were there for that.
Yeah, and it was kind of one of those things because he apparently had just been driving down the Sunset Strip and, decided to,
strip.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit.
And you kind of always think, well, how come, I mean, these people, I never even encountered Hugh Grant while I worked there. I'm like, how come Hugh Grant couldn't just come into our establishment? I could wait on him.
Or Tony Roma,
yes, or Tony Roma's. Yeah.
Are you allowed to say the place where the celebrities were, if you remember who you saw in the place where celebrities frequented, the topless bar? Did you say topless or tapas? Because I thought you said topless.
Oh, topless. Yeah, it was topless.
Yeah. Why not both?
Yeah.
Small plates.
To combine them. Yep. That would have been sort of ahead of its time.
It would have been.
So, there are some people I would feel comfortable saying because they were sort of known to go there or were frequent enough people. I waited on Kiefer Sutherland, who was known. That was already in the tabloid news that he had gone there. And Nicolas Cage came in pretty frequently.
Sure.
What? Did you ever talk to him?
I did. I waited on him a few times, and actually the story in my book is kind of the start of the story is loosely inspired by a thing that happened with him where I was waiting on him and I didn't ask for a credit card to hold his tab because you sort of think, it's Nicolas Cage. He's good for it.
Oh, but is he?
Well,
maybe that he was.
Yeah.
Had he bought any T-Rex heads lately or?
Sorry.
He might have still had his comic book collection.
Yeah.
And started selling it off.
Yeah.
He may not have bought the island yet, so.
Yeah.
The enormous mausoleum in New Orleans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
So you wait on Nicholas Vampire's Kiss Cage.
Yeah, he just that night he had quite a few drinks and he got up and he started to leave. And I mean, I think he just forgot that he hadn't paid the tab yet. But, I kind of just noticed when he was close to the door that he was leaving. And so I was running in my high heels to grab him. And then we settled up. But I thought about it afterwards and I thought, how awkward would this be if I had to track down Nicolas Cage because he had this huge tab and I had to pay it if I didn't have the money.
Oh, my God.
I was thinking, that could be awkward if I'm calling his publicist and he owes.
You'd have to go through the whole Coppola family tree to get the bill settled.
Yeah, and that's extensive. So I might have been able to.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Yeah. But
no, he was very nice about it. But I was like, relief that I caught him.
That would really stress me out as well. Just the running and the high heels part, I think. I don't.
Well, then also having to pay Nicolas Cage's bar tab just seems like that would be a lot of money.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily.
Yeah, because I had that happen with a customer where he had run up a tab that was probably, and you would think that having learned this lesson, I would always have gotten a credit card, but like I said, I just didn't with Nicolas Cage. But I had a guy run up a tab of about $800 and then kind of slip out on it, and I did have to pay it. So I was a little okay, I've been burned by this. I'm not going to do this again. So
that's so upsetting. Either the drinks were very expensive, or there was a huge table, or I don't know.
Now, did Cage honestly forget, or was it because he was having his financial troubles at the time?
I think he honestly forgot. I mean, this was early enough. This was, I think, 94, 95.
Yeah.
He had that Peggy Sue Got Married.
He was doing some method acting for Leaving Las Vegas or something, right? It's being a big.
Well, that's the thing. It was right around that time. I think he was. Yeah, probably.
That's fair.
Doing some, some method acting.
Yeah, he was like, you can put this on my Valley Girl credit. Works for anybody here. This place would usually be in the Valley.
Yeah.
I am so shocked. I'm so sorry. We can't keep talking about
I
this.
know.
Good.
We need to talk about Jeanne Tripplehorn and her Duran Duran poster.
We need to talk about her haircut, which my boyfriend was horrified by it as a younger man than me. And he was just like, what's going on there? And I was like, oh, hun.
That was one of the two haircuts, is what's going on.
Yeah, it was a
there.
couple.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Wasn't that what Brad Pitt and Gwyneth Paltrow got? They had the matching haircuts at one point.
Yes.
Oh,
She
yeah.
had it in Sliding Doors, one of my all-time faves. She got that, but it looked great on her. It looked incorrect on the Tripplehorn, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. We will.
We'll get to that.
We will.
We start at an art auction, and Hugh Grant is immediately charming, immediately funny, immediately Hugh Granting all over the goddamn place.
Sure
You're never gonna mistake him for anybody else. And it's funny because like I hadn't seen this movie in quite some time. I knew I'd seen it before, but I knew what it was about. And the second, there's paintings mounted on a wall, and he's going through them, and the wall kind of turns itself, rotates in and out as the next painting comes up. And the second there's one that comes up empty, and my mind went, oh my God, it's been stolen already. And I'm like, oh, they're already giving us little red hair. This movie.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's it. We're in it. He's making funny jokes about ladies' bums. He's doing quite the stand-up act. If that's what it's like to go to a fancy art auction, sign me up. I'm on my way. And that's it. And he immediately rushes off to meet Jeanne Tripplehorn in her deeply upsetting haircut. She's a school teacher. They are in New York City. We get that Twin Towers shot.
I was going to mention that. Very, let's set what year this isn't shot for New York City.
Only 2 years later.
I know.
It's so upsetting.
So wild to think about it. It's really jarring to see it now. It's like, the whole, like, those buildings just aren't there anymore is, I don't know. It's still really bizarre.
Yeah, that is really weird when you see an older, it instantly dates it. It's hits you.
And they took it out of the Friends intro, but they're not going to take it out of the Mickey Blue Eyes intro. You know what I mean? Like, it's just going to be there.
Yeah, they don't care. They can't catch them all. It's too. I know. It's too much.
I know.
But and then John, you said this in the intro, but Megan, this is a movie that Hugh Grant and Elizabeth Hurley, who he was still with, and at this point they had been together for 12 years. They had a production company together that they started, and I think this was the second movie. So that's why when I saw her name in the credits, I went, Liz Hurley. Okay, I missed that. Maybe the other times I saw this motion picture, and in an interview with CNN of all things, he was joking around that he said he doesn't recommend that anyone work with a significant other. And it's like, I don't know, man. I'm not saying you can't ever make fun of your relationship ever again, but I think that you can't make fun of your relationship ever again. He's like, it's a nightmare. He says, you work together on something like that. I am struggling not to do a British accent. It wouldn't be very good, but it's hard. Anyway. And you end up having massive rows. I know how to say it in public. He's like, it's humiliating. That's humiliating? Hugh. Anyway, particularly when she's inclined to throw things at me. That's tricky. Well, if she's throwing things at you, I bet it's something else she's thinking. I know that at this point it was 4 years later, but still, I'm sure that every argument those two got into, she's just like,
Well, and I remember at the time that the 1995 thing happened, I mean, I don't know that people today would realize how invested people were in them as a couple. Like, it was kind of like, almost like people were like, Hugh, how dare you?
Yeah.
It was very upsetting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were I don't know, not Taylor and Travis Kelce. They weren't that popular because they were British. And I think maybe they were that popular in the United Kingdom. But I mean, Liz Hurley, I think what that sends a very clear message of, if someone can cheat on someone who looks like Liz Hurley, what will the rest of us do?
Yeah.
What are the rest of us supposed to do?
Well, I think it tells you that it's not really about like how attractive a person is. It's not really.
Of course. But at the time I was 19. So my brain wasn't going to the Well, clearly it was. My brain was going, "Oh, okay, this will."
So you're like, when I'm with Hugh, how will I be able to trust him?
Yeah,
How
will we hold his
when
interest?
Hugh and I date? Yeah, so Hugh Grant jokingly telling the press during his press tour that, "Oh, don't you ever work with a significant other?" And I'm like, "Well, you showed her, didn't you?"
Are they still friends? I guess I thought maybe
They are, because she went on. Oh God, I feel like I might also be making this up. She was on Watch What Happens Live
Okay.
with Andy Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
Not that long ago. And I think he asked a question about Hugh Grant, and she was very funny, and she referred to him as grumpy Hugh Grant. If it wasn't Watch What Happens, it was Drew Barrymore. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay.
Those two, I get them mixed up all the time. But I just distinctly remember her describing like Hugh Grant as like a grumpy man. And I was like, that sounds about right.
Well, and it's funny because it was so different than his initial like iteration, which was this very charming, self-deprecating. He's kind of grown into this curmudgeon thing, which is also really working for him. So
yeah,
it's the British trajectory. That's what you do. That's if you make it to your 50s and 60s, you just become a curmudgeon, no matter who you are. Yeah, it's interesting too, because like I was thinking about how we didn't really talk a ton in the Notting Hill episode about how that really was like the final like piece of like reasserting Hugh Grant as, the boy everybody loves, right? The charming, and forgetting about the scandal. Of course, in '95, you had the double scandal of like the sex scandal, and then also 9 months, which is very difficult to forgive people for. But then, if I'm not wrong, I think the first time that Hugh Grant and Elizabeth Hurley produced a movie together was Extreme Measures, right? With Gene Hackman, which is like,
and boy, was that extreme.
A thought experiment with actors, basically. But it's pretty good, but it's also like very. If you're teaching high schoolers philosophy and ethics, as I sometimes do, it's a great movie to use because it's a medical ethics movie with really great actors, but it's just not much of. And it's not like Hugh Grant. It's like Hugh Grant just being this like guy who is a doctor, and none of his like. So I kind of feel like they were using that as a way to kind of like ease him back into the charming Hugh Grant, just like having him play this medical doctor who's embroiled in this weird ethical medical scandal thing that's going on, and then they were just kind of like waiting for this project to be the one to be like, and he's back to being 4 Weddings and a Funeral guy, but then Notting Hill came first, and
kind of took the wind out of the sails, maybe a little. I don't know.
Yeah,
Notting Hill was a big hit.
Yeah, it was.
This made half as much money, less than half as much, and cost quite a bit more. So, which I don't. Again, we joked in the intro. This cost $75 million to make.
Really?
Yeah, we joked that was all the art money.
Right. Yeah, it was for those paintings that the mob guy did.
Yeah, what? Yeah, it was. I mean, you know what it probably is, and I will assume it's the same in 1999 as it is today. It's very expensive to film in New York.
Yeah,
and unless they secretly filmed in LA and then just did a couple overhead shots in New York, I don't think so.
No, they very clearly filmed in New York for like.
So I bet a lot of that money just went to filming in New York City.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming New Jersey.
Oh, well, yeah, that would make sense. Well, and they probably wanted to get. It sounded like, didn't they do research with the mob, or they kind of? I thought I read that, and so they really were, I guess, trying to get a real feel to it, or as much as you can in a romantic comedy.
Yeah, where the romance is between Hugh Grant and James Caan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's the real love story in this motion picture. Jeanne Tripplehorn is barely,
I know,
barely a blip on the screen.
I forgot that when because I also hadn't seen it in a very long time, and I was like, there needs to be more rom in this rom-com, but like.
There's a ton of calm.
There's a ton of
calm all over the place,
and it is a love story between James Caan and Hugh Grant, and it's great on that level. But
well, sometimes getting your dad's approval is really the hurdle. So.
That's true. That's true.
So this movie, something that struck me, and I said in the intro as well, is that, and Megan, maybe you noticed this, is like, the second Hugh Grant, he finds out pretty quickly that Jeanne Tripplehorn's father is in the mafia, although he is just and if I'm getting the familial relations correct, his brother is the head of the mafia, right? Or is she just saying uncle
or like
in
a
that way that you do?
Or yeah, I'm not sure he's like
couldn't really tell,
Yeah.
but he's not the head. Her father, who is played by the beautiful late great James Caan, is not the head. But did you find, Meghan, that Hugh Grant accepted every new piece of information with just the greatest of ease?
He did. I kind of, because it's Hugh Grant, kind of thought maybe he would kind of flail a little, like, or that something would just really freak him out. And he did take everything. He kind of rolled with it, which was still very funny, a lot of his reactions. But yeah, I think it could have been maybe upped even the comedy a little bit if he had freaked out a little bit at some point. So.
Yeah.
What would you guys do if the person you loved after 3 solid months told you such a...
I think part of the problem, like, is that, and I think, again, I noticed a lot more, like, I picked a lot more apart watching it this time than I had the last time I watched it, for sure. And one of the things that I was kind of consciously thinking about, right, is that like Hugh Grant seems to really go with it all the time. And the reason that he seems to cite is that he is so desperately in love with Jeanne Tripplehorn. And to make that make sense, I got to see more about who Jeanne Tripplehorn is. So I think that they have really terrific chemistry, like just on-screen chemistry. I think it's fantastic. And she was actually supposed to play the role that Andie MacDowell plays in 4 Weddings and a Funeral. She had to back out because of a death in the family, ironically. So Andie MacDowell got that role, but she was supposed to be in that role. And I think they're great together. I love their chemistry together. But what I don't see is what they see in each other. Like, I don't understand who she is. I don't know. I know she's a school teacher. She keeps breaking up with him, and I don't see why he is absolutely convinced that this is the love of his life. There's not enough developing of that relationship, where all you had to do was spend some more time doing that, and then it makes sense why he rolls with all the punches, right? But his absolute devotion to this being the only true woman for him, I need more context, writers. Like, give me something to work with here so that you can just play that off very easily, because I think you can make that work as long as I know what he sees in her. But I don't know anything about her aside from the fact that her dad's in the mafia, her mom's dead, and she's a school teacher at a violent school where people get shot all the time or whatever. And that's pretty much her entire character, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, does he ever visit? Because I'm trying to remember, and I did watch it yesterday, so this is just a failure of my memory. But does he ever visit the school? Like, or
not just picks her up, but we don't. That's it. And he it's very funny. It's just a series of Hugh Grant standing outside of places. Like, he goes to the lobby of her apartment, but he's never inside of her apartment. He meets her out front of the school, but he's never in the school. The only time he's inside any building related to her is her childhood bedroom, which fine. And then whoever's mansion that was, where they had I guess that was an engagement party.
Yeah.
What I thought was weird is that Jeanne Tripplehorn's character also, like, I feel like normally in a movie like this, what you would do is she would be horrified by her father's line of work and everything associated with it. And she seems okay too.
Yeah.
Everyone's totally okay with it.
It's maybe that's a breezy movie. Yes, it's very breezy.
Yeah. She's not like, my dad's a killer. Like, the scene in the engagement party when Hugh Grant mistakenly thinks that they mention a shooting at her school, and they say something about the killing, and they're like, ask Hugh Grant what he thinks about that, and he mistakenly thinks they're talking about the mafia in general, and he's like, well, I heard that's just like part of your work. And they're like, what? And she's just like, oh, they're talking about the school. Ha 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 ha. And I'm like, what? Everyone's...
And we love a good Hugh Grant putting his foot in his mouth scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, I also told John in this same CNN interview, and again, as a reminder to you, Meghan, the CNN interview was conducted in August of 1999, and in April of 1999, that's when Columbine happened.
Oh, okay.
So maybe that's why this is happening, but like, literally,
God, Jesus.
Just as just as Hugh Grant sits down in this interview with again CNN, out of the blue, he says, "What horrifies me, these shootings happen," and he's talking about about newscasters and the media, and he's like, and I just heard on the news that there's been another in the States, this one in Alabama, and I looked it up, and it's this case about this case in Alabama. I might have accidentally maybe this doesn't matter, but yeah. A man sentenced to life for a 1999 slaying of 2 teenage girls in Alabama. So I'm going to assume that's what that was talking about. He's talking about. So he's just bringing this up with the CNN interviewer, and he can't stop talking about. And he says, "What horrifies me is the shootings." And then the newscaster is saying, quote, "America has to look into its soul and ask, why is this happening?" And as a European, you want to say, "Because you've got all the guns, you fucking moron." And I was like, oh no, Hugh Grant. Even in 1999, Hugh Grant is saying, America? You got to get rid of those guns. And he's doing it in this CNN interview. And I guess this is the most appropriate film to do that in, but it's still very insane that Hugh Grant opens up this CNN interview just talking about shootings and guns and America's love of guns. And then we just shift seamlessly into what it was like working with James Caan.
Yeah, that's a big tonal shift in an interview. That would have
and especially for this romcom film.
Well, it's a tonal shift. It's a tonal shift in the movie too, right? Like the tone of this movie is kind of all over the place. I didn't, because I'm so used to mass shootings in schools now that like I'm obviously well aware of like Columbine and 99 and all that sort of thing, but it didn't actually even register to me when I was watching the movie. This was the same year as Columbine, and I was like, wait, how did they even get that joke through? Like, why did they keep that? Like, it's a weird, in a post-Columbine atmosphere, it's a weird joke to keep in that you don't need at all. I guess you need it for the part where he puts his foot in his mouth, right? Where he's like, your line of work, whatever, which is a very funny gag, but I don't know. I feel like you can let it go for...
Yeah, just another shooting at your school. Ha ha ha. And I was like,
It makes me wonder if they considered cutting the joke and decided against it, or maybe he had that on his mind for some reason, you know.
I don't know. Like, maybe people forgot. I don't know. John, when did the movie come out again?
August.
Do you remember? Oh, it also came out. That makes sense for the interview. They must have shot it, forgive for that turn of phrase, before.
Yeah.
I can't imagine they shot it after April 1999.
No,
so by then it was like, you know, this is film.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of a pivotal joke in a way, so maybe they were like,
right. That's the issue, is that it is. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of need it. I mean, look, Hugh Grant, he's kind of a Vince Vaughn for me, with few exceptions. He's the same guy in every single role. You know, not in the Willy Wonka movie, obviously. That's probably as an Oompa Loompa, I imagine that was a departure for him.
Yeah.
But he's kind of just the same sassy, sarcastic guy, and I enjoy it immensely. Like the way he delivers lines, I could watch him all damn day. He's hilarious. He's self-deprecating. He's dry. I mean, he's British. I guess what I'm saying is he's British.
Yeah.
Well, I love to read his interviews too. I mean, just even in print, he just is always so funny to me. I mean, he just.
Well, you can hear his voice.
Yeah.
So
yes, you can. It's very distinct. You can deliver it right into your brain the way that he's probably saying it. You're right. Do you want to know what else he kind of slams in this interview, which I also enjoyed, given where we are now? He starts talking about what's called the World Wide Web.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, he goes, in terms of journalism, it's very dangerous. He said, I don't know what is happening in this interview. Hugh Grant and maybe had a drink or two. Who can say?
Hugh Grant on school shootings in the World Wide Web.
I mean, he goes, you know, you read tabloids and you say, my God, how did they come up with this stuff? You read the internet and it's pure fantasy from beginning to end.
Not wrong.
I surf and surf. Yep. And all I find are dull pages written by geeks.
Oh, ouch, you.
Man, I want to.
And then CNN writes, uncomfortable geek laughter from Grant's audience punctuates the comment. Oh, this was a live. Maybe this was a Q&A.
Oh,
but still.
Goodness.
Hugh Grant just like, fuck these guns, fuck this internet. In 25 years, I'm going to be an Oompa Loompa. I don't care.
He clearly had his finger on the pulse. I mean, he was talking about school shootings, the dangers of the internet back when,
it's a normal thing to read right now, but it's surprising in 1999 eyes. No one would say that. Today, fuck guns is all day, every day.
I think we need a time machine to like go back to that interview and show Hugh Grant Twitter and be like, how do we stop this?
Hugh.
Yes.
It's worse than you think.
What's your wisdom?
Don't come. Stay here.
That could be a wacky rom-com. Go back in time and have Hugh Grant stop Twitter. That's a movie I'd pay to see.
I read a comment with him recently where he was saying, people, because I guess he's part of a movement in England to shut down tabloids or restrict something to beef up privacy laws, I believe it is. But he said something about, well, people think I'm just after tabloids because of what happened in 1995. But he's like, it's the police that let out those details. The tabloids who broke.
Go after them as well.
Tabloids killed Diana. It's a different thing, That's
I mean, the British tabloids are particularly, and John, you could probably speak to this. Your both of your parents, right, or just your dad?
Just whole family's British. All British.
Whole family. So you got So they are ruthless.
They suck.
Ruthless and terrible.
They're bad.
They're unconscionable. I don't know what. They give free press a whole new.
Yeah. They suck. It's really terrible.
It's honestly, but
Well, apparently Hugh Grant that's a new mission for him, I guess, or.
I love that.
What's going on?
Again, take that curmudgeon energy and let's tear the British fucking tabloid media to shreds. I love it.
So
So the scene where I want to say something very positive about this movie, right? Because
I liked this movie.
I like it. I
don't know if I made that clear.
I know. Yeah,
I
like it too.
Very fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's a mess. There's places where I just want to go back and like rewrite certain things and change some of the pacing here and there and that sort of thing. But I've always liked this movie. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it is one of the best sort of demonstrations of Hugh Grant's comedic skills of all the movies he's ever made. I think it really, really uses him so well, and he's having such a great time with this. And I don't find the like forget about it or the like, or like the get out of here. It's.
I was legitimately laughing so hard during that scene at the restaurant and in the car beforehand with James Caan. God bless him. I loved that.
But the scene where I always kind of laugh out loud is the scene where he first walks into the the La Trattoria, where
the La Trattoria.
and he's walked into this like parallel dimension mafia movie, and it's so like self-aware in its cliches and so goddamn funny. And when John Ventimiglia is the whole thing about him being like, is he looking at her? Like, what's going on with them? Right. And there's that gag keeps going on in the background. Like anytime he's on screen, is him thinking like somebody is going after his girl or there's something going on with them or whatever. Like it's so fucking good. The two guys sitting at the bar giving him like the once over, Uncle what's his face like eating his like spaghetti with his napkin in the corner. Like, the whole thing is just like so fucking perfect. And it's is it broad as hell? Yeah. Is it borrowing these like mafia cliches? Absolutely. But it's doing so in a way that's just like great actors, pulling off this very, very funny sort of caricature of the roles that they've been playing for most of their career. And I think it's so good. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's so kind of the opposite of a sort of New Jersey tough guy that it's like just kind of perfect.
Well, yeah, that's it too, right? Is the juxtaposition of like Hugh Grant, like Four Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill guy, right? In this scenario is innately funny. Yes. Like this is again, fish out of water stuff is when you do it right. And like So this movie could not be funny and could not work with literally any other actor. Like, it has to be Hugh Grant. This is a movie about Hugh Grant, for Hugh Grant, of Hugh Grant, right? Like, you can't have anybody else. It has to be him.
Yeah.
And most of the jokes hinge entirely on like Hugh Grant and everything that he is making all those jokes work.
Well, I can also tell you that the script was originally about an American lawyer getting involved with the mob.
That wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, no, it would not. And when Hugh Grant read it, he was like, I want to star in this. So they rewrote it, and that's when they turned him into the art.
What if I'm an art auctioneer? Yeah.
Yeah, so they were a lawyer's not. He can't be a lawyer, and that's, you have to be a barrister. But that made a lot of sense. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, and I wouldn't have wanted the movie without the art auction, because that was one of my favorite parts. When he
oh my god!
Put the horrible paintings up for auction, and he's just so happy that it's sold that he doesn't even think, "Oh, it's money laundering."
That was the best scene. And again, I feel like we don't get a lot of physical comedy out of Hugh Grant, and this was a very physical role for him. And in particular, the scene where he gets I keep wanting to say Milo Ventimiglia. That's incorrect.
John Ventimiglia.
What is his character's name? What is his character's name? Do we remember?
Oh God,
something.
It's not Artie. Sounding. I call him Artie.
Yeah, I don't remember
his painting. By the way, while we were watching, I said to my boyfriend, "Do you know what I'm thinking right now?" He's like, "That you'd like to have that painting." And he said, "That's
it would be such a conversation piece."
He goes, "You do love Sad Jesus."
It's kind of an amazing painting. Like, I kind of love it for real.
All of them are good. 0 notes. I said, I do not see a problem with this. And the painting's there, and Jeanne Tripplehorn comes in, and he's and Hugh Grant, doesn't want her to know that it's there, because then she'll know that he's working with her family, and he's doing all these insane things to keep her attention. And just, this scene where he pulls his little pants down, and he's doing this thing, and the bumbling but lovingly supportive British boss who witnesses so much during the course of this movie, never everything is just, that's fine. That's also fine. Oh, your pants are down in the office with your fiance. That's fine.
And Mark Margolis like acting his heart out without like saying a word the entire movie, basically.
Not a word. It's... Who, by the way, has resting mafia face himself.
It totally does.
So, I mean, this was a very fun movie. I enjoyed this. Meghan, we did Runaway Bride, which is, maybe if you remember that, Julia Roberts.
I saw that on, and I
Richard Gere.
A little bit. I listened to it.
Yeah, and it was like, the hype around that was, of course, like, oh, they've reunited after, it's been 6 years since Pretty Woman. And then it was whatever it was. I thought it was fine.
It's fine.
But boy, oh boy, this went down real well for me. I enjoyed every second of this motion picture. I did. It made no sense. I loved it. Jeanne Tripplehorn was the weakest link.
I know, but it's not her fault. Not her fault. She's great.
She just had so little to do. They needed to beef it up a little.
Yeah.
She was really funny in Sliding Doors. Like, she can do some great comedy.
She's good.
She's great in The Gilded Age. Doors. She's great in everything. I love Jeanne. She's amazing. I think
she was great in The Firm.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a ton to do, but I think she, and again, I think her character is like very thinly sketched out. I don't think the writers really cared much about her.
I wonder if there's some cutting room floor Jeanne Tripplehorn scenes that because I don't know where they would be.
I don't know,
but
I think she made the most of what she had. And like the Duran Duran scene is great, and the scene where she accidentally shoots her cousin or whatever is great.
Yeah, she's got some good physical kind of, not comedy exactly, but yeah, kind of comedy.
Oh, so what about, sorry, you said physical comedy. Hugh Grant's assistant, was she always?
Oh, I love her. I want to. Yes.
Okay, I wasn't like, I was like, am I imagining what's happening right now? This woman is literally always out of breath. Okay, that was a fun little choice.
She was a big enough part to me that I kind of kept thinking she would come into play in some
like maybe
way.
she's like a secret FBI agent, or she's
Yeah.
somehow been planted, even though clearly she worked there before. I also thought that the very first scene we see Hugh Grant before he arrives at the school, and he's saying, "Do you think it's too early to do this?" And she's like, "No, it's not." And he walks away, and she looks after him, and I was like, "Oh, this woman's in love with Hugh Grant."
Well, yeah, because there's that whole thing where she's like, where he says, "Do you think it's like is 3 months too soon or whatever?" And she's like, I don't, no." And it's like clearly she's in love with him, and
she's like, "No, I've been in love with you for 6 years."
Right, what? Exactly. And like I wanted more of that story as well, because I loved that character. I want her to have her own movie. Like she's great. But then they just sort of forgot about her towards the end, and just kind of
she kind of disappeared, which is a little disappointing. So,
but she could have ended up with who was it? Who was the other the Kids in the Hall FBI agent? Who was it?
Scott Thompson. Scott Thompson.
Scott Thompson. Thank you.
Yeah.
Scott Thompson? Yeah, I end up with Scott Thompson, who I often mistakenly refer to as Kevin Feige. I'm like, is that Kevin Feige? They look very similar. But yeah, that was a thrill too. Again, this movie just, I feel like, I mean, Hugh granted. I'll be honest with you both. I'm someone who likes to put on a movie and fall asleep. I come and I go from a motion picture, especially if I'm with my boyfriend. So, and if you're listening, honey, obviously you caught me sleeping a couple times. So in my mind, I'm like, this movie skipped and we're around a lot, but it's possible that I was just having little sleepy moments.
No, it really does kind of skip around quite a bit.
Okay. So it wasn't just me pretending not to be asleep when he looks at me, and I was like, "What?" I'll just like laugh out loud and hope that he doesn't notice what I do. But the part where they're burying the body, that was a delightful scene in that we're supposed to believe that even though there's these two warring crime families, that they're all actually friends also. Like there's no real there is this war situation, but they're also like, hey.
It's kind of like that old Warner Brothers cartoon where I can't remember if it's a sheepdog and a coyote or whatever.
Yes.
Cross paths. They're like, they like clock in and out, and then they're like,
yes,
we're friends when we're off the clock.
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah, immediately they clock in, the coyote goes after him, and then as they clock out of work, it's like, okay, we're done, we're out.
Yeah,
that's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, like that sort of thing though is again like what works best about this movie is that there's not much movie here, but like the series of jokes that it is are delightful, and like the one we also. One of my, I just thought of it, like I'd kind of forgotten the scene existed until you were talking about the artwork. But the scene where before you see the painting for the first time, and it's just that shot of everybody looking at it, and like all of the expressions on their face, and whatever Hugh Grant says, right, is fantastic. The Chinese food restaurant lady who, like, I love her. That whole scene's great.
Oh God, yes, that scene. The scene where the other woman.
Oh yeah, that's.
I could talk about that restaurant scene for honestly the rest of this time.
Yeah, well, and I mean, they kind of do it also like that's not the restaurant that they had intended to go to, but I love Chinese food. I was like, yes, propose to me at a Chinese food. This would be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why it was so expensive. They kept having to rent out entire restaurants.
Maybe that was it.
Nobody was in the Chinese food restaurant. And of course, nobody was in the La Trattoria, but that's because it was a money laundering front.
And also, I liked that joke they had too about it's the La Trattoria. And they're like, isn't that
so it's the?
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a lame joke, but like it's a lame joke that is in the spirit of this movie, right? That it's like whatever. This is a movie of pretty lame jokes that are delivered by like very funny people. So it all goes over really well.
I feel like that's, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I feel like that's sort of supposed to be saying like a nod to the like play Italian acting that like the mafia sort of does. Like these guys have never been to Italy,
right?
And yet and yet their entire identity is Italy. So, but then they name their restaurant like it's incorrect. And in my mind, that's what they're doing. They're like, these fucking guys don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently, and I hadn't realized because, and I'm ashamed to say this, but I have not watched all of The Sopranos. But I guess
don't be ashamed. I only watched it during the pandemic.
Okay.
That was my first time. Nope.
I guess
you're good.
most of these guys went on to be in The Sopranos, so it's kind of almost like
yes,
they had a reunion of sorts going.
Yeah,
everybody was there.
Well, they must have been filming. So these were probably filming concurrently because they must have filmed this in like 98, and they would have started filming The Sopranos in 98, right? Because it came out in January 99. So yeah, there's a lot of crossover here. But yeah, I would imagine like a lot of these guys had just started on The Sopranos. Some of them hadn't showed up yet because Aida Turturro doesn't show up until season 2 with Sopranos, right?
Yeah.
And a bunch of them. I mean, there's Tony Sirico and Vince Pastore, right, are both there from season 1. But yeah, there's 8 Sopranos actors in all throughout the movie, and a good number of them aren't in the first season. But those couple definitely.
Maybe this helped.
I'm sure.
Maybe this helped. Maybe they were like, "Hey, there's a guy who's just sounds vaguely."
Yeah.
I met a guy, like the guy who plays the doorman who, what's his character's name in The Sopranos? I love that character too.
I recognized him immediately because he's so earnest and sweet in The Sopranos.
Yeah. I fucking hate what they do to that character. It sucks, but
anyway, enough said. This is not talking Sopranos.
I mean, it kind of inevitably is.
The only Sopranos podcast there is. This is Hugh Grant land.
We should talk about James Caan as well, who is,
oh my God, James Caan,
the best.
Okay, Meghan, you know who his son is, Scott Caan, right? Are you familiar with Scott Caan at all? In this motion picture, more than any other time, I mean, Scott Caan looks very much like his father, but for some reason, when James Caan showed up, maybe who knows? I think Scott Caan was probably younger than his father in this movie, but Scott Caan now. Mm-hmm. Of James Caan then. But I saw so much of his son the second James Caan got on the screen. I went, there he is. There's Scott Caan. Mm-hmm. Boy, oh boy, I love James.
You can see that family resemblance. It's fun and it's spooky because sometimes I think, oh my gosh, that's how much time has passed that I see this.
Yeah. Well, about working with who Hugh Grant refers to as Jimmy Caan. I have to assume that's what happens after you've befriended him.
Yeah.
So he says he was intimidated, shockingly. He goes, because, and I quote, he's Sonny Corleone from The Godfather.
Yep.
And let's not forget the biggest star in the world for about 7 years. It makes Tom Cruise's reign look like peanuts. Well, we can't say that anymore. Mm-hmm. But he's like, but we got on very well. He liked kissing me. He liked hugging me. My theory is that he fell slightly in love with me, said Hugh Grant.
You can see it on camera.
Go back to the rom-com between...
Yeah.
Yep.
Honey, it's all over. And then he said, Jimmy Caan had one of his ex-Brooklyn mobster friends visiting on the set. And after doing a few takes, this guy is getting very agitated. And then he called Jimmy over and he said, Jimmy, listen to me. Don't dig too deep around here. I'm not kidding.
That's the kind of inside information that it's good to have,
And Hugh Grant was like, he wasn't kidding.
Oh
no,
don't dig too deep around here.
Yeah, James Caan was great in it.
Yeah, we forget that James Caan was like funny sometimes because James Caan often played very sort of like hard, mean-spirited characters and played that very well. Like that very like firm exterior, but like he's funny. He's funny like this and an Elf. Like it's just when he let his humorous side out, it was something to behold. And he's just like he's so charming here. He just like nothing seems to faze him. Talk about like Hugh Grant being unfazed by everything. He's just sort of like, yeah, I was in prison for 8 years and my daughter hated me, but now she doesn't for some reason, and like everything's fine, and I'm gonna have to kill you, but it'll be.
We have to talk about her brother.
Yeah, what is going on there?
He was funny.
Character actor whose name I don't know, but who I've obviously seen in many, many things.
Yes.
I could not. What were we doing with this guy? Like, here's what I do like about this movie. It is an interesting take on mob life in that, yes, there's some scary moments, but for the most part, things you think are going to happen in this movie don't happen. For example, most movies would make James Caan be this incredibly scary man who is, you treat my daughter well, you got to treat my daughter, some kind of fucking speech like that. And instead he loves Hugh Grant immediately. And as we've said numerous times, Hugh Grant loves him back. And that's it. And his son is weird and he's an idiot. And James Caan's like, and I love my son.
Yeah.
He's not this like constant disappointment that needs to be like reprimanded and chastised and punished. He's just this lovable idiot. And that's it. James Caan loves and accepts his lovable idiot son. Everyone in this, if it weren't for the fact that these were all clearly men who have, like I said before, resting mafia face, I'd never know.
It's kind of almost like Ted Lasso before Ted Lasso. I mean, it's kind of like this very feel good, although Ted Lasso doesn't have, mobsters and criminals, but it's that like everyone's very good natured and like there aren't a lot of the problems that you would think there would be.
No, I think this is a beautiful movie. I really did.
Yeah, the scene where the brother suddenly shows up naked. I can't remember what the context is.
Where they got tuxedos and he comes out to pose and
just in his underpants.
And I'm just like, it's so funny. Nobody's mad at him. They're just like, this is.
It's a very Reese Ifans and Notting Hill moment as well. And I'm like,
Hugh Grant's had to be around a lot of oddly shaped men in underwear.
It's just a new Hugh Grant movie thing. The Hugh Grant trying to speak with a New Jersey accent thing just like never ever gets old. The restaurant scene. First of all, okay, you can't just order beer at a restaurant. Like that's not an order, beer. But yeah, when he like what's so good about it, right, is that it's not just a British guy struggling to like mimic the New Jersey accent thing, right? It's like Hugh Grant taking that and then like amplifying it one step further. Because when he does the rare thing where he's like and you're like, oh, that's not even a bad pronunciation. That's you thinking through what is the worst possible pronunciation I can get away with to make the joke still make sense, and like hitting the nail on the head, right? Like the forget about it. The
id was so funny. Why are you saying id? He's like, you said every T is a D.
Are you going to whack me? Will you stop saying that? Yeah. It's like, it's so good. And that they use that to end the movie as well, because they know how good the bit is. They're like, well, let's give it one last hurrah. So when he's like, proposing to her at the end or whatever it is in the park, and he's like, get over here, and she's like, what are you saying to me? And it's like, this is how we're going to end the movie, because this joke is the heart and soul of this entire picture. But God bless it, because it's goddamn funny.
My boyfriend also asked me a question, and I was pretty sure I said I don't think so, and he said, well, has Hugh Grant ever done a movie where he's had to have an American accent? And I don't think he has had to do like a Henry Cavill or a Christian Bale sort of like. I've never. I mean, look, I've never. The shock of my life the first time I heard Christian Bale's real accent, I was like, "What's this now?" Mm-hmm. I don't think he's ever played an American in a movie. Can you guys think of anything? No,
I can't.
Maybe he's legitimately really bad.
I think he is. I think I know I've heard him say that before, that he's very terrible at American accents.
Well, then I'd like to think they worked that into that. I mean, that's also an incredibly wonderful scene.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of his charm, I mean, and I'm not saying he has tons of charm, but and a lot of it comes from his Britishness, and it would be interesting. Like, I wonder if with an American accent, how that would play.
Oh, it'd be gone. You're right, Megan. It would be out.
Megan's absolutely right. Like, this is there's no point in having like the reason that you cast Hugh Grant, like where his profitability comes from is the accent. Like, you're not gonna nobody wants an American accent Hugh Grant. There's no point to that. That's like, I
don't want an American accent.
That's like having Hugh Grant not run. Like,
no. After this, after we're done, I might just go rewatch for the 10 millionth time Bridget Jones's Diary, even though he's not in it that much. I don't care.
Yeah, and I love About a Boy. I may rewatch that.
Oh my God.
A classic. So
One of my favorite
Hugh Grant.
movies. Yep.
or of course,
Yeah.
4 Weddings and a Funeral kind of kicked it all off for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny when my husband and I started dating, when you're picking out movies, he said, yeah, I don't, we were looking at a movie and he said, I don't really like Hugh Grant. And I was kind of like, well, first of all, how dare you?
Red flag.
And secondly, some of your charm reminds me of Hugh Grant. So I'm like, this is clearly a self-loathing thing. But he actually, I'm like, over the course of our relationship, he did grow to like Hugh Grant. So he appreciates him now.
Well, people can grow. And that's good to know, right?
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
People can be wrong,
they can.
and then they can change.
Exactly.
It sounds like he found some sense.
Exactly.
And sensibility.
Exactly. Yeah.
The other thing that, speaking of James Caan and Hugh Grant, by the way, is that, did you know that he nicknamed Hugh Grant Whippy in filming the film?
Whippy?
Do we know what that's from?
After the Whippet, an English breed of dog that shivers a lot.
Is James Caan always cold?
No, James Caan called Hugh Grant Whippy.
Oh,
So
that's
apparently
funny.
he was always shivering, or it's the floppy hair, or I don't know what it is, but
Oh my God, that's delightful.
There you go.
Well, maybe James Caan was kind of scary, and maybe he was intimidating.
I would be intimidated. It's Sonny Corleone. I mean, I'd be intimidated.
And again, he's got his best friend, the actual
the actual mafia guy,
mob guy there. So yeah,
and James Caan is not even a little bit Italian, right?
Caan sounds honestly Scottish to me.
Yeah, I'm
English,
fairly certain he has not an ounce of Italian in him.
Are we all looking up James Caan's?
I am, because
yeah, now I'm curious, because I would have just assumed, I suppose, that
James Edmund Caan sounds very British.
Jewish immigrants from Germany are his parents. So
okay,
very not Italian. He did grow up in the Bronx, so Italian by proxy, but
close enough. He's like Robert De Niro in Goodfellas, except I think Robert De Niro was he Polish? Was it what's his face's character? One of them wasn't Italian. Doesn't matter. Either way,
sort of honorary kind of got
Yeah. So I do want to talk about getting to the ending.
Okay.
It felt like they sped right through it, and it wasn't because I was sleepy. I honestly can't tell you how it ended, and I don't mean because I missed it, but because I don't fully understand
FBI stings.
The ending. Well, because I was going to make a reference about a recent one, but I think we're all okay.
Mm-hmm.
No. So do you think they have to go into the witness protection program now?
Oh, yeah. This is right. Yeah,
this is what
my question.
This is what I don't understand. After, I can't, the ending on the kiss was I was like, what? I think they have to go to the Meghan. What do you think?
Well, Meghan, you're the lawyer. You should know the answer.
Meghan, you're the lawyer.
I would think that they would still want to go into witness protection. That I will give the caveat that is not my area of law at all. So,
it's all the same.
Don't take my legal advice on this, but yeah, I would think that would be smart. I feel like they kind of glossed over it, like because the deal didn't go down the way they originally thought it would, that somehow it was all okay. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they should just go to England, obviously.
Well, there you go.
The three of them should just flee to England.
Well, so that makes sense, right? Yeah. Why not? Yeah. Why not do that? But they never say anything about it whatsoever. He's like, oh, then he's going to think he's going to think you're dead and he got his revenge or whatever. And it's like, right, but then he's going to go to prison and he's going to know things about the outside world.
Out that you're still alive.
Yeah, he will know that.
I mean,
Well,
yeah, and
you're right. They should have gotten to England because I think maybe they thought it would be too much of a downer. But if they went to England, that would be kind of charming. And
I think like I would have liked to have seen like this is a bit of a cheesy ending. So you see Jeanne Tripplehorn and Hugh Grant step off the airplane and they're just like, sort of breathing a sigh of relief, and then stepping up between them, throwing an arm over each shoulder is good old dad. And he's like maybe saying like some sort of reference to opening up another like the cafe while in
that's
ready
a great ending.
Ready to open up the pub or whatever, and they're like,
pub, yes.
I guess they'd blown so much of the $75 million already that
couldn't
affording a plane ticket to England to film that last scene. But alas, would have made perfect sense. It would have ended the movie in a perfect way, and then you could just have it be a prequel to Notting Hill. It opens a
oh my god, a travel bookshop
for Julia Roberts.
One side of the cast goes to The Sopranos, and he goes to Notting Hill. That's
the bookstore.
The bookstore. Did you find the end thing? I was like,
I said that's great.
Okay. All right.
I guess I kind of appreciated that they really held the bit. Like he says it and she's like, what are you saying? And then he says it again and she's like, I don't, and they kind of just kept going with it. And I was like, wow, you really committed.
Oh, do you know what was a very funny scene? It's the beginning, when they're running and she's like laughing hilariously. And she's like, you can stop running like that now. And he's like,
that was good.
Oh yeah. She's like, that's my run.
And she's like, I'm like, oh, I wish they had shown us whatever he was doing.
Yes.
Yeah. But goddamn, I thought that's so funny. She's like, no, really, stop. And he's like, what? It's like, there's no reason for it. It's just a fun, like, it doesn't really do much other than just be funny. It's just a funny little scene.
Yeah.
I loved it. I kind of want to know if that's really Hugh Grant's run, or if he just, like if he had a silly run, so they did the scene, or if they just.
I sort of pictured a very stiff, not moving his arms at all, sort of knees, legs coming up very close to his butt, sort of like stiff run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was what I was picturing out of Hugh Grant. Nothing like, nothing like that. Not like he's, trying to sell cars.
No, running in a very, very proper British manner.
Yeah.
That's what I pictured.
Two things I appreciate about this movie, like regardless of its weird sort of tonal shifts and plotting and, the problems that it has. One, it always, even if the bit's not that funny, it commits, which I think is great. Like, I don't think the La Trattoria joke is that funny, but they're like, we're going with it. And I'm like, all right, sticking with it to the end. Good for you. But also, it is a movie where even though a lot of it kind of doesn't make sense, every single actor here, like, completely understands the assignment. And that goes a really long way in comedy. Right? Like everybody knows exactly what movie they're making. They know exactly what they're doing with every scene. They all get the joke. And like, that is part of what makes it really fire when the jokes are really funny, which is more often than not, which is what makes it a good movie, that it's more often very funny than it sort of drags. So
I thought that was good with the bit parts too. Like you were talking about the assistant or the brother. I mean, the bit players were also extremely committed.
Yep.
Like they all had a thing.
They were fully formed weirdos, and we barely knew anything about them.
Yeah.
So, there weren't any throwaway characters who weren't really, playing it to the rafters.
So the question is, Jen, so obviously like Notting Hill is the superior Julia Roberts and superior Hugh Grant movie. Between this and Notting Hill, who has the better second movie? Or between this and Runaway Bride, I should say. Who has
Hugh Grant.
Okay.
I liked this more than I liked Runaway Bride. And that's set in my home state.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that Hugh Grant is a more charming leading man. I think Richard Gere is fine. I don't think Richard Gere can be funny. Richard Gere is an attractive man, but I don't think he can carry a comedy as well as Hugh Grant can. He's just effortless.
That's true.
Yeah. It does seem like Julia Roberts does a lot of the work, right? And kind of as far as the comedic parts.
And she's very funny.
Yeah.
She's very funny.
Yeah, but it's like you said, I love Richard Gere, but he, other than I think Chicago, where he was doing this musical, and it was just seemed so sort of out of left field for me from Richard Gere. I agree, he's typically much more straight laced. So
yeah.
So I would agree that I prefer this one to Runaway Bride.
Yeah.
So
what about you, John?
I think so too. And again, like I liked Runaway Bride sort of more than I remembered liking it. And there's things about it in revisiting it that I really sort of thought were great. Interestingly, in both cases, this movie and that one, I think like one of the best features of both movies are the supporting sort of bit players, right? Which like, and they both have a fantastic array of bit players who do their job incredibly well, which is just it's these are two examples of, I think, two of the best examples of that kind of movie where like you have all these just random characters and they all seem very fully formed, and every sort of every role is filled by somebody who just is making the most out of it, and that is great. But yeah, I like this movie is breezy. It's an hour and a half long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. And the comedy highlights of it are just like, I mean, they're so funny. They're so great. Like when this movie fires, it fires on all cylinders. So yeah, I certainly understand people like, is this a movie that you like felt good about spending $12 to go see in a movie theater? I don't know, maybe not, right? Like I can see you like walking away being like, well, that wasn't as good as Notting Hill in 25 years ago, but it's if you like Hugh Grant and you appreciate his skill, this is such a great demonstration of why he was so talented. Not just as like a dramatic actor, but as a comedian. He is just a very, very funny man. Or at least plays one in the, in the movies, even if he's a curmudgeon in real life, as so many great comic actors do tend to be. But there you go. So yeah.
So I can tell you at the end of this interview, he's very funny. Believe it or not, this end of the CNN interview.
Oh, that one again.
Interview. Yeah, the interviewer reminds him that in a month he'll be turning 39, and she says, or he, I actually don't know, says that he kind of wrinkled up his eyebrows the way he did in 4 Weddings when he was telling Andie MacDowell that he loved her. And he goes, it's like a nightmare. He says, I think it's pathetic to be sitting around having conversations about what I really want to do with my life. When I'm 39, I should have worked that out by now. Then there's a pause, and he says, clearly I'm miserable. And that is the end of the interview. The end on clearly I'm miserable. I think it was a Q&A. They referenced an audience, but what a great, we really went on a real journey with Hugh Grant in that interview. He was shockingly open, I think. I don't know, maybe they caught him on a good day or a about to turn 39 sort of day.
Reflective. He was like, oh.
It's really out there. Fuck the internet, fuck them guns, fuck this birthday.
I wish I was about to turn 39.
God, what I would give.
I know. Now it sounds so young.
I know.
Can you imagine? I mean, 40 sounds young right now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh well. Time marches on.
Yeah, I had a friend who was devastated to turn 25. And even at the time I thought, oh, come on.
That's happening more and more lately. Like,
I love
people
turning
losing
25. 25 was like my favorite thing to turn. I really
you could rent a car.
Yeah, there you go.
I think that's 27, but sure.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know. 25 just sort of felt like you're kind of like, I don't know. I just really felt like over all the bullshit when I was, I don't know. 25 was great. I felt really good about that. I felt good about turning 30 as well. But like, then things started getting murky at that point.
And then he turned 39 like Hugh Grant, and it was.
I don't even remember turning 39. I'm sure I did.
That wasn't a big one.
Yeah, because that's like right before the big one. So you're sort of
exactly.
Like, this is a nothing year.
Yeah. It's like, just trying to beat out the clock. Anyways. Oh well, time. Before we go, we need to ask you two questions that we ask every first time guest.
Okay.
The first question is, aside from Mickey Blue Eyes, what is your favorite motion picture from 1999?
You can look it up
if
you can't.
Okay. Was The Insider in 1999?
It sure was.
Oh my God. Wow.
It's The Insider.
Okay.
I love that movie. So.
Oh my God.
There were a lot of fabulous movies that year. So
we will be covering that in our next round. We're gonna do crime. We should probably have you back for that as well, because
I would love that. Yeah.
Crime and punishment.
There you go.
That's what I'm calling it.
Favorite kind.
Why is it because you love tabloid news, legal stuff that you love that movie? Is it because it's great? Like, why do you love The Insider?
I think it's because I feel this isn't why I love it. I think it's fabulous, intense, and I never would have thought you could make a movie about a whistleblower that was so edge of your seat. But I definitely think I really enjoy the courtroom stuff, and I also just really love this kind of dual theme of two people who end up being whistleblowers and kind of how that all evolves. Like Al Pacino's going to draw him out as a whistleblower, but in the end kind of has to turn whistleblower. I just think the parallels are so cool, and I enjoy it. So
it's a great movie. Yeah. And it's one of those ones where, you look at the Oscars for 99 movies and you're like, what the, how is...
Yeah, what happened? Yeah.
Goddamn fucking American Beauty. Anyways, also one of the things that I will always love about The Insider, so I think Russell Crowe is like one of the great actors of his generation. And, that was sort of when he was in the height of his career. And he made The Insider within several months of making Gladiator. And you're like, how the fuck incredible. Is that the same person?
Where'd have that body? Where'd that body go? It went inside.
Yeah. I think it might have been the other way around, though. I think they shot The Insider first. I think he got into from The Insider and not the other way around. Which is,
I mean, when I think of The Insider, I just think about his hair.
Yeah.
I can't, all I got in my brain is that wig.
Yeah. Well, because they make him look quite different than the usual.
Yeah, it's the same. Is it the same wig that Tom Cruise wore in the
in Collateral? There you go. They just kept it.
They were like, let me just blow the dust off of this.
Yep.
Okay, Tommy. This is for you.
Yep.
There you go.
Meghan, do you have a favorite movie, period?
It's funny because I usually say The Insider is also my favorite movie, period.
You can do it twice.
It would end up being basically the same movie. I really love that movie. So I guess
that is so interesting.
I guess
you definitely have to come back for it, because to have someone who loves it that much, you got to come back.
Yeah.
I do love it. I'll just give you, I guess, my second favorite 1999 movie. There were so many good ones, but I really love The Sixth Sense. So that's, and I know you guys have covered that one, but
very early on. Yeah, it's a great movie. I showed it to a bunch of... So the cool thing about The Sixth Sense now is that I showed it to a bunch of students last year. And
it's been so long.
It's been enough time now that they have no idea, right?
Oh wow!
Oh my god! No.
Yeah.
No.
None of them knew. None of them knew. One of them figured it out.
What's this Turner Classic? I'm like, it's not a Turner Classic.
Yeah. It's
Which Mankiewicz is hosting this? None of them. This is not
But yeah, no, it's not like a meme for them. They have no idea what that movie is or what happens in it.
So have you started hearing I see dead people all over the hallway? Perhaps. God damn it.
I don't have hallways, but no, it's why
don't you have hallways?
Because it's a campus. It's like it's a school with a campus. We don't have like hallways, but no,
surely there's one hallway.
I teach like a one week course at the end of the year on film criticism, and so like it was probably like 20 kids or whatever, but they were all like, oh. Yeah,
and you were like, and you know who that man is? That's Donnie Wahlberg from New Kids on the Block.
Yeah,
and they're like, what? And then they were like, Mark Wahlberg's brother.
Zero context for that. Oh yeah, maybe Mark.
Once upon a time.
Even Mark Wahlberg might be a deep cut for them at this point. He is.
I don't know if they've seen the Transformer movies, but like Once Upon a Time, Mark was Donnie's brother, and then one day,
I know,
Donnie was Mark's brother. And now he's a weirdo who's like starting his own Christian movie studio and whatever.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
He's trying to atone for those sins of his youth. Well, good luck. Good luck.
We'll see if he recruits Marky Mark. So
no, that is Marky Mark.
It's his studio.
Oh, it is Marky Mark. Oh,
yeah,
I thought it was
the weird Christian movies now. Yeah.
No, he's the weird Christian now.
Oh, okay.
And even now, Catholic. He's super Catholic. He's always been super
Donnie's
Catholic.
fighting vaccines with Jenny. That's
Donnie's the one who's married to Jenny McCarthy, the anti-vaxxer.
Okay. Wow.
I know.
Interesting.
This is very 90s from Singled Out.
That goes deep.
Yeah, man. I remember a time when Marky Mark was the second most famous Wahlberg.
Yeah.
That's a good I'm this old thing to say to the kids. All right, so Meghan, if people want to learn more about you and your work, as it were, where do you want to send folks?
I'm on Twitter and on Instagram as Paulk Writes, but I also have a website, Meghan Leigh Paulk, just my name. And
it's Paulk.
And there's H's everywhere. Yep.
Yeah,
H is all over
except the last part, which my brother always said sounds like something hitting the floor, which is pretty much true. Paulk. Yes. So that's you can find me there. So.
Cool. Thanks for joining us.
I'm excited to talk about Inside Man with you as a lawyer, to break down court scenes with a professional. Because you'll get to do. I don't know what kind of lawyer are. Do you litigate? I don't know.
I do. I am a litigator.
Okay, so this is good because what I've always wanted to do in some like movie podcast capacity is to do a bit of myth busting when it comes to motion pictures. Like, what is this really like? Is this what it's really like? So don't say anything yet.
Okay.
And you can hopefully myth bust these courtroom scenes in Inside Man and tell us what it's really like.
The Insider, not Inside Man. Different.
Sorry, it's the Insider. Sorry. I don't know if you just own like 16 gray suits. Like,
well, I actually have 15. 16.
Okay.
Like it was.
Like my favorite lawyer of all time, Matlock. Yes, it's
yeah. No, you need a black one in case you have to go to like a funeral or something. So you have the 15 gray suits
and litigate there. Oh, sorry. No, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
15 litigations in a funeral.
Is still pleading the fifth, I might say. Yeah. They will not be testifying today. They aren't.
You can find us at 1999 the podcast on the social medias. You can email us at 1999@cageclub.me. That is right. Our network is named after the person who almost stiffed Meghan all those years ago, Nicolas Cage. So it all comes full circle, but you already knew that. We will be back in 2 weeks. So what's a good joke?
Well, we're telling the movie.
We are telling the movie. I'm trying to think of like a joke about. So clear the runway for landing something, because we're talking about pushing 10.
There it is.
Oh, cool. Yep. That's a good one.
It is a good one. Yeah. We'll be back, and look out for frogs.
The world still is the same. You never change it. As sure as the stars shine above, you're nobody. somebody till somebody loves you. So find yourself some